Hey everyone, I'm here with Nate Peo. We just recorded a couple great episodes of the podcast, and he has his own podcast. It's called the All In Podcast. You can check that out at natepeo.com. And we were talking about all in and what that means, and we just had a couple great conversations. I can't wait for those episodes to drop, but we wanted to hop on here and just hang out for a little while. So Nate, what's up, man?
What's going on? I'm fascinated by this concept. You just kind of explained it to me with the casual Zoom meeting afterwards, and I'm like you, where I found it like you do like these conversations or a podcast, and then you hit the not record button, and the good stuff seems to come out after the fact. I find that very interesting, but I'm also like interested in your 2 episode guest idea. Like how did you kind of like come up with that and like decide that's like something that worked for you? Was that always the intention? Because it's pretty interesting how it's you
Yeah,
know
not at all. That wasn't my intention at all. In fact, when I started my podcast, it was supposed to just be a daily 10-minute thing, just me solo. And it
Mhm.
was actually started as a morning call. And I did a morning call just for 10-minute mindset, just to help people create, think better thoughts. Because I noticed that a lot of people start the day in a really bad way, right? They get up, they hit snooze 3 or 4 times, they get in a rush, they chug coffee on their way out the door, they sit in rush hour traffic, only to get to a job that they really don't want to be at. And this all happens
Mhm.
before 9 a.m. Now it's 9 a.m. It's time to start your day, and you're already in this huge momentum deficit. So I thought, what if you just focused on outcomes you want to achieve, action items you can do that are realistic throughout the day to help you build momentum towards those outcomes, and be grateful for specific things that already exist so you can operate from that emotion.
Mhm.
So that's how it started. So it was 10 minutes solo every day. And then I thought, you know what, people on the West Coast aren't going to get up at 7 a.m. or 4 a.m. their time to listen to this. So I'll record it. And I've been in podcasting for 10 years, for 8 years at that point. I'll turn this into a podcast. That way everyone can participate. And that's how it started. And then I had people reach out to me and start asking me, can I be on your show? And I have a radio background. So I've
Mhm.
done interviews in the past. So I thought, great, it'll alleviate me having to make content for a day, because I'll actually have to have a conversation with someone, and it'll give the audience a different perspective. And so that kind of took on a life of its own. But what I noticed was 10 minutes was really short for most people. It goes by really fast. So I thought, you know what? The way it started was some people would come on live. We'd do it in the morning. And then I'd say, stick around for 10 minutes afterwards and we'll do another one. That way we get to talk for 20 minutes, but then it just goes out back to back days, because it was 7 days a week at that point.
Yeah.
And that's how the 2 episodes started. And then because people kept reaching out to me. So I, knock on wood, I never had to go out and struggle to find guests. They just came to me. And that's how it's always been. I mean, I get referrals, I have people that reach out. And so, I mean, I've been doing an interview show now every day, 5 days a week at this point, but it used to be 7 days a week for the last 2 years. And I've never had to actively, I mean, I have reached out to people that I see. So it's not like I don't, but I've never been in a position where I'm like, well, if I don't find a guest, this is going to be bad. I've never been there.
Yeah.
And so I want to give people time, because they're giving me time. They're giving my audience time. I don't want to be like, you only have 10 minutes. So that's where
Mhm.
the 2 episode thing came from. And then I realized, as I was telling you, that most of the best stuff happens I have a love-hate relationship with the record button, right? Like, I love it because I love to have this stuff that I can go back and listen to again, that I can share with the world, that becomes valuable content and helps other people. But there's something that happens when you hit that record button to the other person on the other side. And there's
Yeah.
something to you as well. I mean, it happens to me too, where once that record button's hit, it's almost like it's time to perform. And it's
It
like, how do you turn that off and just be real?
I noticed that because like you could have really really good conversations with people, and you think they'll make a great guest, and then they don't necessarily make a great guest because when you're in like an interview format, the conversation doesn't flow. Like they'll end their thought and wait for like a question, and you're like conversationally they might have asked you a question, or it might have taken this path down. So I think we were talking about all in and like what that means to go all in. And I think like your example really resonates with me, is that like you just kind of like you have this idea that you want to do something. And if you're like me, like a lot of times, like when I think about why would I want to do like a morning 10-minute show, and like all those things you named off, like I'm gonna guess that those are the things that you might have felt like, oh, I have to go drive to work and I'm gonna rush and I'm out the door and I'm not leading this fulfilled life. Like so your message of motivation, like for me a lot of times, like if I post something motivational, it's not for me to tell other people how to live their life. It's more of a message for myself to kind of like, hey, this resonates with me. This is the kick in the pants I need today to kind of get me going. But then you go, okay, I'm going to do this because this is how I feel. And if I feel this way, there's probably somebody else that feels this way and resonates with me. But then you just start doing. And if you're always waiting to like plan this out, like if you had waited for this idea to come, like I'm going to do 2 10-minute episodes and casual conversation after the fact, that might never have came. And then you would never got started. And then you never would have been down this path. So it's just like, hey, if you want to go all in, go get started. Like the ideas will evolve, the ideas will pivot, the ideas will get better. And you're going to refine your voice, but you're not going to figure it out until you start doing it. So that's why you have to go all in. You have to get uncomfortable. You have to do like when you don't feel like doing it, or if it's not your day, or you're a little bit nervous about reaching out to somebody and asking them to be on your show, or the first time you're talking to somebody that maybe you admired that you never met before, and they're kind of like semi famous person, a celebrity. You're like, just do it, because the worst that's going to happen is you're going to muffle your words, and nobody really cares that much anyways. And if you're good at it, you can take out the stutters and the stammers. I'm just like, hey, let's roll with it. That's just how I am.
Well, yeah, and I, just to kind of piggyback on what you said, I totally agree, and I also believe like I don't think this was my idea, and because here's why. And when I look at like artists, right, I'm fascinated by artists because I think I'm an artist at heart, and I look at like Paul Simon, Billy Joel, Elton John, these guys, they take nothing and create something out of nothing. They take an instrument, they create music, and they put words to it, and then after they do all this work themselves and create something, then other people attach to it, and all the words to most of their songs, and you sing along with it, and it becomes this big interactive experience that people tie emotion to. And so I believe like their songs, their genius, these types of ideas, they don't necessarily come from us. They come from somewhere else. I call it
Mm-hmm.
God, whatever label you give it. So I believe these ideas come from God, but you have to go out and put some energy into it for God to come through and say, okay, look, you tried this. Why don't you try this? Because I believe, look, we've all been given gifts, right? We all have talents. We all have these things we're innately good at. And God gave those to us for a reason. Now it's our goal to explore those and figure out, how do I best use this? But we're not going to be able to do it on our own. We need help. And the only
Mm-hmm.
way we get that help is by going out and exercising what we have, trying
Right.
it, getting feedback, seeing where it's guiding us, where are we being pulled. So yeah, absolutely. This idea for this whole format and everything I do that's kind of unique, I never would have been able to come up with this on my own. I don't think this is my idea. I think this is God's idea that he's playing out through me. But the only way that I was able to discover it is because I got started, because
Mm-hmm.
I did something. And then he said, well, why don't you try this? And I listened. I thought, that's an interesting idea. Let me try that. And
Yeah.
then the next thing and the next thing. And so that's what
It,
I believe.
and sometimes those ideas come to you and they just feel like this has been here all along. But I think when you're going down this path of figuring it out, and God puts the signs in front of you, like you're not ready to receive the message sometimes. Like you
Yeah.
have to go through a little bit of trials and tribulation and self-discovery to, oh my God, that's been there right beside me. It's always been here all along. I
Mhm.
just wasn't ready to see it yet. And then once like your eyes open to it, you can never unsee it. It just becomes like so like eureka moment. But
And it's funny because once you begin to get traction on something, then you can go back and think about all the things in the past that didn't work out and go, oh, that's why. But
mhm,
look, that's what I took from that. That's why I
yeah,
needed to do that. That's why it needed to happen the way it did. And now I can apply that to this. That's part of the reason why this is working.
exactly. Those
So,
are lessons you learned on the way to help you with your future
and
struggles.
that's why I don't believe in failure. I don't believe it's
No.
a real thing. I think failure is just a label that we've created that we human beings use to explain why we didn't reach an outcome that we expected to reach. And it's
Hmm.
like, why should I expect to reach anything? Right? It's like I go out and I go all in on the task that I'm in, because where I sit right now is infinitely better than I ever thought I would be. I thought I would be opening my 5th restaurant today, building my restaurant empire 10 years ago if you had asked me. But I'm
Hmm.
much more fulfilled here, and it's something that I never would have came to on my own. I had to fail at certain other things, and I don't call it failure, I call it learning.
Yeah.
I didn't meet my expectation, but this is better than anything I ever would have expected, so
It,
I'm eternally grateful to be here.
it's true. And like you're right. You don't really fail unless you settle and you just accept that that's defeat. Like, cause this is a game where we live a life in till we die, and we try to fill it with things that bring us fulfillment and other people help other people out along the way. And if we just go, oh, well, I failed at life, then like, and you're, 40 years old, I failed at life. Like, well, what are you going to do for the rest of your 40 lives? Just like call it quits, not get up anymore, just like write it out, like, so as long as you're willing to just kind of pick up the pieces and try something else and follow that path where it is. And really, when people say like, what is success? We talk about success, and a lot of times you say, okay, that's fancy cars, big houses, lots of money in the bank. And it's like, no, I think as you get older, you realize success is, what kind of impact are you leaving on other people's lives? And some people have huge, massive impacts at a very surface level, and other people are just like really, really impactful on a very personal level. Like, somebody that's like big with a big platform like Gary Vaynerchuk's maybe like reaching like millions of people at a scratch level surface, but maybe your grandmother, made the best cherry pies and really impacted the 20 or 30 people in her small town community.
For sure.
Just people loved and adored her, and she brought so much happiness to it. So it's really, success is, it really can't be defined and be judged. It's really how much impact you're having on people, and giving your gift. And whether that's, hey, you give really great smiles, or you have really good music that you play out, like it could be anything. But when you chase those gifts and you're trying to make as many people feel special in life, that's to me a success. And you can't fail at that as long as you keep making progress to go down that path.
And I think too, I think our greatest gift that God gave us, aside from life, is the ability to have free will and be able to make decisions. And we live with those decisions, but that free will and that opportunity lets us decide what things mean. What does this mean? And what am I going to do about it? And we have the power to make those decisions. And so you can look at something that may or may not have worked out the way you wanted it to and go, okay, what does this mean? What did I get from it? Now, what am I going to do about that? And that is so powerful when you realize that, because you can look at something and say, that didn't turn out how I wanted it to, but what do I take from it? What does it mean? It can mean what I want it to mean. And now I get to make the decision of where I go from here. How can I use what happened there, regardless of what the outcome is right now to me emotionally?
Yeah, exactly.
It's a powerful thing, man. It's good stuff.
It's very
Got to be all in though, right?
You do. You just got to put one foot in front of the other and just say, hey, I'm just going to keep moving forward and keep plugging away at it. To me, that's all in. It's just not giving up. Sometimes you pivot, and sometimes you learn like, hey, this is bashing my head against a brick wall. Like, let's go around. And sometimes taking you around takes you in a different path. So you have to balance being not giving up too soon, but identifying like, hey, when it's the chance, when is it really not working, and where is it this going to bring you more fulfillment if you kind of pivot a little bit. And that might take you a little shift, it might take you a big shift, but 20 years down the road, a little shift huge gap of where you're headed to where you end up. So
for sure. Well, thanks so much, Nate, for everything, for the podcast episodes, for this. This was so much fun. And natepeo.com is where people can subscribe to your podcast, the All In Podcast. And let's do it again soon, man.
Yeah, we should. This is a great conversation. Love to continue it.